Hey everybody, today I'm counting down my top 10 simple card games. Now I really enjoy a simple card game, and the games on this list, I've kind of used the criteria of being under a 2.0 weight on Board Game Geek. Obviously they're all card games, but a lot of these have kind of additional components that you need to play the game, such as maybe tokens or dice, but all defined as card games on Board Game Geek. And to be honest, I found it quite difficult to make this list because there are so many great card games out there. And I was kind of weighing up in my mind whether I should talk about the games that I genuinely think are the best 10, but kind of cover all down sometimes because I talk about these games quite a lot, or kind of spice things up by adding some games that I don't talk about so often on the list. But what I thought I would do is I would make a list about my my top 10 what I generally objectively think are the best. And then down the road, I'll make a volume 2, which will cover some of the games that don't get talked about so often. So let's get started at number 10. So at number 10, I have Biblios. Now, Biblios is a really interesting game by Dr. Steve Finn. It kind of is a game about two halves. The first half of the game almost has this kind of pushy luck style element to it, where you are drawing cards face up one at a time on your turn, and you are either going to give them to your opponent, you're going to take it for yourself, or you're going to put it kind of on a face down pile for auctioning on the second round of the game. And the idea of the game is pretty much a set collection method where you're trying to collect all these different suits, but the value of those suits in terms of points at the end of the game is going to be kind of changing throughout the game as players manipulate these dice by either making them more valuable or kind of toning the value down if you know that if your opponent's got got more of those cards in their hand than you have. So that's pretty much how the game works. The second half of the game is going to be a kind of a pure auction where all the cards you put on that face down deck are kind of auctioned off using money that you've accumulated in the first round. And and that's going to be how the game plays out. So it's a kind of a game of few points. It's a very tight game. There's some really cool reveal moments in it where you think you're running away with a certain suit and your opponent trumps you by one, and you've done all that work for nothing. So a very fun game. Probably maybe the most heavy on this list, kind of closer towards that 2.0 weight, but still very very digestible and just a lot of fun. That is Biblios at number 10. At number 9, I have 6 Nympht by Wolfgang Kramer. This one is kind of a classic, very simple card game where you can have these 4 different rows of cards. All the cards consist of numbers from, forgive me, I forgot what they go to, but they're literally just numbered. And the idea of the game is you're trying to get as few points as possible, represented by these different bullheads on those cards. Every player is going to be given 10 cards randomly, and then everybody's going to pick, or kind of a turn is going to consist of everybody choosing a card and revealing them all at the same time, and then you're going to kind of play them in numerical order on these different columns, on these different rows, sorry. And you're going to put them on the row that corresponds to the closest one to it that you're not under. So as you play on, the rows are going to build up, and as soon as a 6th card is played on a row, then the whole column is taken and you're going to take them as negative points, leaving the card that you've just played behind. It's a very tense game. There's kind of a bit of luck into it, but the dynamicness of it, the way that things change throughout, the chain reaction of the game is so much fun. It's so kind of whimsical and quick, and I just really love it. It's a lot of fun, and I've never really had a duff game of it, to be honest. That is 6 Nympht. At number 8, I have another pushy luck style game. In fact, it is called Push. This is designed by Prospero Hall, who've done a lot of the kind of games based on intellectual properties. But this one is very simple, almost like a blackjack style game where you are pushing your luck, trying to play these different cards on columns, try not to duplicate a certain color or number. And you can kind of keep pushing your luck, trying to get as many points as you can by these cards, or inevitably go bust and lose your turn basically. But the cool thing about this game is you can stop and then take a card or a column of cards in front of you, and then the other cards are kind of taken by other players. But you can force other players to kind of roll the dice, and then when you roll that dice, you've got the possibility of losing every card of a certain colour out of the game. But you can also kind of choose to bank a certain colour on your turn and keep it safe from that risky dice roll. But yeah, it's a very fun style game, and again, another game that I've never really had a death game of. It's always gone down well. It's got a real visceral tension to it as you are trying not to lose all your cards. Are you going to keep taking turns and just hopefully not lose anything or not lose much? Or are you going to play it safe and keep banking your cards and accumulate points that way? But a lot of fun, and yeah, a great game. That is Push. At number 7, I have a game that's not massively different to Push, to be honest. This is Coloretto. Coloretto is purely a card game, and it's a card game that scales very well from 2 up to, I think, maybe 5 players. This one, you are basically building columns of cards, a bit like Push. And on your go, it's going to consist of either playing a new card to one of these columns or taking a column. And the idea is you're trying to collect these different chameleons, but you're only kind of aiming to collect 3 of them, 3 different colours, because you're only going to score positively for 3 colours at the end of the game, and every kind of chameleon type you have after that is going to score negative points. And it kind of works in this kind of accumulating fashion. So, if you have 1 card, it might give you 1 point. If you have 2 cards, it'll give you 3 points. 3 cards, it'll give you, 6 points, whatever. So, it really does ramp up, and you want to be being as concise as you can, trying to collect just those specific 3 colours. But obviously, other players are going to be fighting over those colours as well. They're going to be playing cards on top of your chameleons, which they know that you want. Are they going to be giving you cards they know that you don't want, and so on. So it really is a game about going as far as you can without kind of shooting yourself in the foot, really. Great fun, and just really, really nice game. That is Coloretto. At number 6, I have a 2-player only game by Tim Flowers. This is Fugitive. It's a deduction style game for 2 players, where one person plays this marshal, the other one plays the fugitive. The fugitive is trying to play cards secretly, jumping up in kind of small increments, while the marshal is trying to deduce what cards you've stopped off at. And they're going to be drawing cards each turn, trying to tick off this little dry erase board the different stops you've gone to, and if the marshal ever just kind of discovers all the stopping points that the fugitive has gone to, then they'll win. Whereas if the fugitive gets all the way to to card 40, then they're going to win. Very tense. It's a deduction game that works really well considering how it's so asymmetric. Both sides of the game are fun to play, and it's just really well put together. So one that is just a really tight, flawless game, really, and you can spice it up by adding these different kind of event cards in, or you can play it in a more kind of tactical way without using these event cards, where it's a bit more predictable. But both ways are great, and it's a lot of fun. That is Fugitive. At number 5, I have Hanamikoji, which is another 2-player only game. This one is this kind of a tug-of-war style game where you're trying to gain the favour of these geishas. But what I love about this game is how elegant it is. It is so simple and beautifully weighted. Kind of the smallest of mistakes can cost you this game. Mechanically, it's very simple. You have 4 different actions, and you can use those actions in any order. And kind of the main focus, or one of the cruxes of the game, is the fact that this uses this I choose the cards that are put towards you, and then you would choose the card that you want. So it's kind of like a I split, you choose method, where you can kind of play tricks on people, trying to lean them towards taking a certain card when you want the other 2. It's a real kind of poker face style game, but one that is just amazing. The artwork is gorgeous as well, so it really is a game that you have to try, and it's a game that rewards multiple plays, very elegant, and just a beautiful 2-player game. That is Hanamikoji. At number 4, I have another 2-player only game, and it's another kind of tug-of-war style game. This one's by Rainer Knizia. This is Battle Line. Now, Battle Line is basically a game of poker where you're playing over multiple hands. So this one, you have 9 separate flags set up, and you are playing cards one at a time, always drawing back up to 7 cards on these different flags, and you're trying to create the best 3-card poker hand you can for each of those flags. And if you can kind of trump your opponent and make a better hand than they can, you're going to win that flag. And the objective is that you are trying to either win 5 flags or 3 adjacent flags. The game becomes more tense and tense as the game goes on because your options quickly run out, and where you start the game feeling very optimistic about getting those higher, those higher kind of formations out, those consecutive cards of the same color, by the end of the game you are kind of really, grasping at nothing really and hoping to just get the most basic of hands to beat your opponent. But a great game, again, mechanically very smooth, so simple, but it works just extremely well, and just a testament to how great of a designer Reiner Knizia is. So that is Battle Line. And number 3, I have No Thanks. Now, No Thanks is one of my go-to games to introduce to new players. It's a game where you are trying to get as few points as possible. And all you're going to do is you're going to reveal a card. Those cards are numbered from, I believe it's 3 up to 35. And you're trying to get the least amount of points as possible. And on your turn, you're going to either take a card as negative points, or you're going to use one of your kind of secret chips in your hand and put it on that card, basically saying that I don't want that card. And it's going to go on to the next player to make that same decision, either to take that point, take the card, or to play a new chip on it. But the cool thing about this game is that when obviously you're playing these chips from your hands to pass on taking that card, they're going to accumulate and accumulate, and every one of those chips is not only going to give you kind of more passing power going forwards to skip over the more higher valued cards which you don't want, and they're also going to count as one negative point as well. So, and obviously negative points being good in this game. So there is this constant scale of temptation as these cards are being passed on, and there's also an added layer of kind of tactics to the game as well, where you only score your lowest card on a certain rung of cards. So if for example, if I had the 14, 15, and 16 cards, I would only ever score for the 14. Whereas if I had the 14 and a gap in the a gap and then the 16, I would score for both of those cards. So having a run of cards is beneficial, and you can really use that to your advantage. But a great game, just easy to whip out, takes 10-15 minutes to play, easy to explain, and it's just so engaging. That is No Thanks. And number 2, I have my second Reiner Knizia game with High Society. Now this is an auction style game where you have a hand of cards, and you are bidding on these cards to score points. Basically, you have cards numbered from 1 to 10. You're trying to score as many points as you can, but you also have negative point cards in that deck as well, which you are bidding not to take. This game has quite a few twists in it, which makes it really interesting. Number 1 is that your hand of cards is quite strict in the fact that when you play cards in order to outbid your opponents, you are not allowed to take change. So as the game goes on, your kind of increments of money you have is shooting up and up and up, and those gaps are becoming bigger, and gives you less flexibility to bid what you want without kind of overspending. But also, at the end of the game, the player who spent the most money out of everybody is automatically disqualified from winning. So you can't just completely spank all your money on getting those higher cards, because you could just automatically be taken out of the equation. And that constant kind of scale in your mind goes on as throughout the game. You're trying to weigh up what other people have spent, trying to make sure you're just under that threshold. Great game, an absolute classic, and almost a perfect design for me. That is High Society. Definitely want to check out. For 3 to 5 players, I believe. Number 1 is a game that I've kind of always shouted from the rooftops about. It's another auction style game, one of my go-to games, and one of my absolute first games in my collection, one that still is whipped out all the time. This is For Sale. As I said, it's another auction style game. It has some similarities to Biblios, but I think this one, just the execution is a bit more accessible, a bit more kind of intro friendly. This one, first off, you are bidding on properties, trying to get the best properties for as cheap as possible, and you've got properties kind of ranging from a portal cabin all the way up to the biggest kind of mansion or space station, numbered from 1 to 30, 30 being the best. And once you've kind of spent all your money and everyone's got their properties, you are going to kind of do a blind bidding method where you have a bunch of kind of checks. I think they're numbered from 0 up to 15,000, and everybody is secretly bidding one of the cards they've accumulated in the first round and reveal them at the same time. And whoever's played the highest card is going to take the highest bill, and so on. But there's some real tension to this one, because obviously you're trying to weigh up trying to remember what people have taken in the first round to kind of judge your decision on, because you don't want to play your best card and end up taking an absolute rubbish check when your opponent can just trump you easily. So you can be very clever with this one. You can get some really good deals by playing low cards and taking high bills, or you can get absolutely shafted, all depending what the other players do. And it's that kind of feel of, I know that you know that I know that you know, that kind of is very tangible in this game. And it's just a lot of fun. I think it's probably the best filler game of all time, and one of the best filler games I've ever played. And I love it. It's just a great game. Again, always been a hit for me. I've never had a duff game, and people always ask to come back to it. And I think it's my most played game of all time. I just love For Sale, and it's just brilliant. So if you like your auction games, you like something a bit simple, you like to play, I think it's 3 to 6 players, and this sounds up your street, then I urge you to give it a go. So that concludes my top 10 simple card games. I hope there's something on here that's piqued your interest, and I recommend them all strongly. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. You can also follow me on Instagram or back me on Patreon. I'll leave the links below for those. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.